Welcome to the installation ceremony for Dr. Wendy Wintersteen, the 16th President of Iowa State University of Science and Technology. Your program includes the installation program, which describes our ceremony. I wish to note that with your installation program, you received a gift of a seed card with the Iowa State University seal. The card has wildflower seeds incorporated into the paper. Please plant these this spring and the flowers will grow and remind us of our deep connection to the cycle of life. We begin the ceremony with the March and Procession of Bacchus, composed by Leo Delibes and arranged by Eric Osterling. The march will be performed by the ISU Wind Ensemble under the direction of Dr. Michael Galimo, Director of Bands. At this time, it is my privilege to announce the official student delegates of Iowa State University. They represent the entire student body, including student government, the Graduate and Professional Student Senate, academic colleges, hundreds of student clubs and organizations, individual residence halls, various states and countries, places of employment, the Army, Air Force, and Navy ROTC programs, and the sorority and fraternity community. Members of the Assembly may remain seated during the processional. It is my privilege to announce the presidents or other officials from the Association of American Universities, the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, the Big 12 universities, the Iowa Community Colleges, and the Iowa Independent Colleges and Universities. They will be followed by representatives from all of Iowa State University's academic departments. It is my privilege to announce the delegates of learned societies and professional organizations. It is my privilege to announce individual representatives of the faculty at Iowa State University. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the members of the Platform Party. The Platform Party is led by Chief Faculty Marshal Dr. Robert Wallace, Associate Professor of Ecology, Evolution, and Organismal Biology, and Dr. Lee Burris, Professor of Agronomy. Dr. Wallace will be carrying the university mace, which symbolizes the authority of the university president and signals the official beginning of this installation ceremony. We ask that the members of the assembly please rise if you are able to do so for the procession of the platform officials, beginning with the president of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, Dr. Michael Richards, who will serve as our presiding officer. And now, the presentation of colors by the Iowa State University Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps Color Guard. Iowa State University is very pleased to introduce internationally acclaimed vocalist and F. Wendell Miller Distinguished Artist in Residence, Dr. Simon Estes, who will perform our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner
Please be seated. I now invite Senior Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Martino Harmon, to the lectern.
Good morning. As we gather here today for this historic occasion for Iowa State University, let us first pause to acknowledge a tragic loss of a member of our Cyclone family. Thalia Barkeen Rosamena was a bright and dedicated student in civil engineering. She came to Iowa State in 2014 for her education and to join the women's golf team. Thalia was a three-time academic All Big 12 selection and the 2018 Big 12 Women's Golf Champion. She was a wonderful ambassador for Iowa State University. Our hearts and deepest condolences go out to her family and friends, both here in Ames and abroad in Spain. As Cyclones, we grieve together for this terrible loss. She was proud to be a Cyclone, and all of us are better today because she was a part of our lives. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember Thalia Barkeen Rosamena. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, Dr. Michael Richards.
Welcome, everyone, to this historic event, the installation of Dr. Wendy Wintersteen as the 16th President of Iowa State University. Today's installation is a time-honored ceremony, one rich in history, steeped in tradition, and magnificent in the color adornments that represent our institutions of higher education and learned societies. But it serves a much greater importance than pomp and circumstance. For through it, we are reminded of the important role this university plays. Iowa State University has a mission of knowledge, discovering knowledge, applying knowledge, and most importantly, conveying knowledge to each successive generation so that they can assume leadership positions in this society, country, and world. There is no more important mission than the mission it performs. Iowa State is a treasured resource for Iowa, the nation, and the world, and today's installation is time to reaffirm and celebrate that tradition. I want to thank everyone for being here. Honored guests, including federal, state, and municipal elected officials, the many participants in the installation program, representatives of other colleges and universities and learned societies, representatives of all academic departments, faculty and students of the university who processed to begin the ceremony, and the many family and friends of Iowa State University and Dr. Wendy Wintersteen and Mr. Robert Wagner. At this time, I'd like to introduce the dignitaries who are seated on the platform and who will not be introduced later in the program. Please rise as I read your name and remain standing until all individuals have been introduced. I ask the audience to hold their applause until all of the introductions have been concluded. My fellow members of the Board of Regents, Patty County President Pro Tem, Milt Dokovich, Larry McKibben, Sherry Bates, Nancy Butker, Nancy Dunkel. Bruce Harold, President of the University of Iowa. Mark Nook, President, University of Northern Iowa. The Honorable Steve King, Congressman from Iowa's 4th Congressional District. The Honorable John Hala, Mayor of the City of Ames. Jonathan Wickert, Senior Vice President and Provost. Martino Harmon, Senior Vice President for Student Affairs. Pam Kane, Interim Senior Vice President for Business and Finance. Sarah Nusser, Vice President for Research. Reginald Stewart, Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion. Kristen Constant, Interim Vice President for Information Technology. John Lawrence, Vice President for Extension and Outreach. David Spalding, Interim Vice President for Economic Development and Industrial Relations, and also Dean of the Debbie and Jerry Ivy College of Business. Luis Rico Gutierrez, Dean, College of Design. Beata Schmidtman, Dean, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Sarah Rajala, Dean, College of Engineering. Laura Jolly, Dean, College of Human Sciences. William Graves, Dean, Graduate College. Joe Coletta, Interim Dean, College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Beth McNeil, Dean of Library Services, University Library. Vernon Hurt, Dean of Students. Patrick Halbar, Interim Dean, College of Veterinary Medicine, and the faculty marshals. Please join me in thanking them for their participation in today's ceremony. It is customary at the installation of a university president for representatives of the university's many constituencies and its governing authorities to bring greetings to the new president. As a member of the Board of Regents, I am honored to bring greetings to Dr. Wendy Wintersteen. As president of the board, I had the pleasure of being involved in many special events with Dr. Wintersteen over the past several months. However, two stand out as particularly memorable. The first was following the board's meeting to determine the next president. I had the pleasure to publicly announce on October 23rd, 2017, that Dr. Wintersteen had accepted our invitation to become the 16th president of Iowa's land-grant university. In announcing the board's decision, I stated that the board was impressed by her vision for Iowa State's future, and I considered her one of Cyclone's own. She has worked at Iowa State for most of the past 4 decades, and she knows the institution through and through. In these days of migratory university leadership, it is highly unusual for an individual to grow intellectually as a graduate student and then through the employee ranks as an extension staff member, earn a PhD, and assume a faculty position, then gain the trust of a major college to serve as an outstanding dean and now president. On behalf of my fellow regents, we are proud and recognize her promise as Iowa State's university president. She will help ensure this proud university's growth, allowing each student, staff member, and faculty member to make a difference in today's world. The day I announced that Dr. Wintersteen would be Iowa State's 16th president and its first woman president will always be a highlight of my own presidency as well as for many of my fellow regents. The second event that stands out is today's ceremony, where we officially invest Dr. Wintersteen with the duties, responsibilities, and privileges of this esteemed office. 149 years ago, a group of people gathered on this campus for an event not unlike this ceremony. The date was March 17th, 1869, the official opening of the Iowa Agricultural College and Model Farm, and the installation of its first president, Adonijah Welch. At that installation, Iowa Governor Sam Merrill said to Dr. Welch, "To you, sir, and your associates, I am happy to give expression to the personal and official confidence I cherish in your fitness for your work. No better wish can be expressed that your success may be commensurate with its importance. May the fruits of your labors be as abundant as the fruits of the soil whose mysteries you are called to reveal. Dr. Wintersteen, may your success as well be commensurate with the importance of your work, which is to continue to build a great research university whose purpose is to create, share, and apply knowledge to make Iowa and the world a better place. Congratulations and best wishes."
I am pleased to introduce the Honorable Kim Reynolds, Governor of the State of Iowa, who will provide greetings from the citizens of Iowa.
Well, good morning, and Dr. Wintersteen, I want you to know how extremely pleased and honored I am to participate in this historic installation ceremony. Congratulations on becoming the first woman president of Iowa State University, only 160 years in the making. On behalf of the state of Iowa, I extend to you and your husband, Robert, the first gentleman of Iowa State University, a warm Iowa welcome. This is such an exciting time in Iowa. Now more than ever, we're creating and fostering a diverse economy by using the abilities and strengths of our citizens. And as a result, we're seeing an undercurrent of optimism, passion, and energy spreading across Iowa communities in all four corners of our state. It's a movement that's igniting startups and unleashing innovative solutions to solve the challenges that we see in our world today. Together, we're working to improve Iowa's innovation ecosystem in order to grow our economy for the future. And given this transformational environment, along with your highly successful career at Iowa State University, I believe that you're perfectly positioned to lead this prestigious land-grant institution into the next decade. Under your leadership as dean, the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences ranked in the top 10 in the world. It became the third largest ag college in the country. You have a proven record in promoting entrepreneurialism and advocating for the important role of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. You're focused on extending Iowa State University's tradition of excellence while forging new paths to achieve even greater success. I know you will attain this important balance through ingenuity and imagination because as you've stated in recent months, at Iowa State University, we can change the future through research and innovation, and produce entrepreneurs who start businesses in Iowa. We can do it through entrepreneurial opportunities and through the Iowa State University Papa John Center for Entrepreneurship. We can do it through our partnerships and collaboration with community colleges. There are so many ways to expose our students to an entrepreneurial mindset. As president, you clearly understand ISU's vital role in being at the center of cutting-edge, high-tech innovations and graduating individuals who are tomorrow's leaders and problem solvers. You often talk about how individuals have the ability to totally and completely change the course of a life for the better. Your compassion and concerns for others is contagious. You've made a tremendous difference for students, faculty, and staff for nearly 40 years at Iowa State University. Moving forward, I have no doubt your influence will continue to serve as a catalyst for improving people's lives. Dr. Wintersteen, I wish you the very best at one of the nation's leading land-grant institutions and the entire state of Iowa, and I personally look forward to working with you. Thank you.
We will now proceed with greetings from remaining representatives in attendance. Representing the undergraduate students of Iowa State University, Julian Neely, President of the Student Government.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the student body, I would like to congratulate and greet you with Cyclone Pride as our 16th president and our first woman president of Iowa State University. Even before becoming president, you had already done a lot and wonderful things at Iowa State University, especially as Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I am truly excited to see that work reciprocated throughout the university in your new role. I am glad that you have a focus on creating an inclusive and more engaged campus for our students, a mission that I hope to be an assistance in. In the time that we have worked together, I have recognized the passion you have for improving the student experience and reminding us that students are the heart of this university. I am truly hopeful for our university and anxious to see where you take us in serving, and you have reminded us that we are servant leaders in serving all students, no matter our background, no matter the identities we hold, that we are Cyclones at the end of the day, and we are a part of the Cyclone family. To all the students in the audience, will you please stand and help me greet President Wendy Wintersteen.
Representing the graduate and professional students of Iowa State University, Norin Yassin Chaudhry, President of the Graduate and Professional Student Senate.
On behalf of the graduate and professional students at Iowa State University, I'm honored to greet President Wendy Wintersteen today as our 16th president of this prestigious institution and the first woman. Central to the graduate community of ISU is its richness of diversity, cultures that it represents, and its unwavering commitment towards our collective progress and success. We are from Iowa, from other states of United States, and from all over the world. In my brief time of getting acquainted with President Wintersteen's vision, I feel nothing less than pride that we have a leader who believes in building a community on 6 important principles: respect, to harbor understanding and creating strategies for resolving disagreement that have long held distinct communities from expressing themselves openly. Purpose, to progress knowledge and expand upon boundaries of science and creative arts. Cooperation, to string together the diverse efforts and unify them for our collective and individual success. Richness of diversity, to cherish all forms of ISU experience. freedom from discrimination to overcome biases and create equal opportunities, an honest and respectful expression of ideas to harbor courteous and honest disagreements. The graduate community, representing the greatest faction of international community, stands together with your vision to be the future of higher education. We extend our support in enriching opportunities for individuals, families, communities, and businesses, and supporting your vision for Iowa State and its glorious future. We vow to be at forefront of progress to better societies all over the world. Here's to building this vision together.
Representing the faculty of Iowa State University, Dr. Peter Martin, President of the Faculty Senate.
On behalf of the Iowa State University faculty, it is my honor to welcome Dr. Wendy Wintersteen as our 16th president. President Wintersteen, you are, and you have been for a long time, one of us. We are looking forward to working with you as we strive to make Iowa State University a prominent land-grant university, one which appreciated by people in both small and large town Iowa, throughout the United States, and in cosmopolitan cities all around the world. Our faculty are creative, they are innovative, and dedicated to their field. And we pledge to support you by conducting research that addresses critical issues of our time. We are poised to educate the next generation of leaders in the state of Iowa to be active, concerned, and ethical citizens. As a world-renowned university, we will strive to make our work accessible to and connected with the people of Iowa. We will promote diversity and inclusion, acknowledging that we learn more from those who are different from ourselves. Finally, the faculty at Iowa State University want to succeed in making Iowa State a great place to work so that every faculty member feels engaged and connected. These are exciting and challenging times for our state, for our nation, and for the world. We will not ignore the challenges that are upon us, and we will give much of our time and talent. President Wintersteen, you can count on us. On behalf of the Iowa State Faculty Senate, my heartfelt welcome.
Representing the professional and scientific staff of Iowa State University, Stacy Renfro, President of the Professional and Scientific Council.
President Wintersteen, I am honored to welcome you on behalf of all professional and scientific employees as you continue your journey to advance the impact and excellence of Iowa State University. Installation addresses typically call for institutional change. In 1869, our first president called for a new approach to education, leaving behind classical education to combine learning and labor. Our second president, William Chamberlain, called for an increased enrollment of women. 80 years later, President W. Robert Parks called for a new humanism. I am certain your installation address, "To serve, to lead, to excel," will frame the context of how professional and scientific employees and the Iowa State community will work with you to build this next chapter of our proud history. Professional and scientific employees are perfectly positioned to work with you to build our university's future. We are the largest employee group at Iowa State University, and through advising and advocating for students, conducting and assisting with research, and providing many types of outreach and direct assistance to people across Iowa and the world, we are dedicated to making Iowa and the world a better place and to fulfilling the mission of Iowa State University. President Wintersteen, the professional and scientific employees Look forward to many opportunities to work with you cooperatively to strengthen our land-grant institution and to secure the future for ISU and its students.
Representing the merit staff of Iowa State University, Jean McMakin, President of AFSCME Local 96.
Dr. Wintersteen, I'm honored today to welcome you as Iowa State University's new president. It's my considered opinion that your institutional knowledge, achieved through your many years of service to ISU, was a significant factor in the Board of Regents' decision to choose you to lead Iowa State University. Like you, many of the 1,300 plus merit staff have served ISU for most of their careers. That body of knowledge is just one of the many reasons that merit staff share your commitment to enhancing the ISU experience for all. Merit staff look forward to working with you, President Wintersteen, and the ISU community so that all are safe and feel welcomed, supported, included, and valued by the university and each other. President Wintersteen, welcome to Iowa State.
Representing the alumni of Iowa State University, Lawrence Cunningham, President of the Board of Directors, ISU Alumni Association.
President Wintersteen, I'm honored to bring you greetings on behalf of more than 260,000 alumni of Iowa State University. I've had the opportunity to speak with numerous alumni and friends since you've been named our 16th president, and I can tell you without question there's tremendous support for your leadership. Alumni and friends recognize your long-standing commitment to listening and your willingness to engage in dialogue, which serves to strengthen the ties of the diverse community that we bond together. Your strong character, your commitment to excellence, and your deep and abiding love for Iowa State are among the virtues our alumni hold most dear and solidifies the trust that we all place in you. As Cyclones everywhere gather to celebrate your formal installation, we offer you our very best wishes for professional success and personal fulfillment as you lead our great university. So on behalf of the Iowa State University Alumni Association's board, alumni, and staff, I'm honored to reveal to you and all those present that following this ceremony, I will present you with a commemorative book from the approximately 53,000 Alumni Association members. Each name is listed in the book for your remembrance of this day and will serve as a reminder that you have our most loyal support. President Wintersteen, our alumni family is delighted to welcome one of our own as you take on the grand challenges of leading our alma mater. Congratulations, enjoy, and go Cyclones.
We now have two musical presentations for you to enjoy. The first is the premiere performance of To Serve, composed by Michael Galimo in celebration of President Wintersteen's installation and performed by the ISU Wind Ensemble with Dr. Galimo conducting. Simon Estes will follow, and in honor of this installation, he will perform the Toreador song from the opera Carmen by Georges Bizet and arranged by Dr. Galimo.
Votre toast, je peux vous le rendre, Seigneur, Seigneur, car avec les soldats, oui, les toreros peuvent s'entendre, pour plaisir, ils ont les combats. Le cirque est plein ces jours de fête, le cirque est plein de haut en bas. Les spectateurs perdant la tête, les spectateurs s'interpellent en apportant apostrophe, prise ta page, poussez jusque la fureur, car c'est la sera courante, car c'est des gens de cœur. Allons, en garde, allons, allons, toreador, en garde, toreador, toreador. Et songe bien, oui, songe à combattant, qu'un œil noir te regarde, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador, l'amour t'attend. Et songe bien, oui, songe à combattant, qu'un œil noir te regarde, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador, l'amour t'attend, toreador, toreador, l'amour t'attend.
I think on behalf of everyone present, we'd like to thank Dr. Michael Guillermo for his outstanding new composition and Simon Estes for his brilliant performance. Let's give him another round. We are now honored to have a special friend and former colleague of Dr. Wintersteen, as well as the 14th president of Iowa State University, Dr. Gregory Geoffroy, who will introduce Iowa State's new president. Dr. Geoffroy assumed the Iowa State presidency in 2001 after a distinguished career as professor of chemistry, department chair, and dean at Pennsylvania State University, and later as the senior vice president for academic affairs and provost at the University of Maryland. His presidential inaugural address, he outlined 3 priorities: to recruit and retain top faculty, to provide students with an outstanding living, learning environment, and to engage the people of the state of Iowa. These goals became hallmarks of his accomplishments and were coupled with major new buildings and renovations. The most historically important was the complete restoration of Morrill Hall, which represents ISU land grant heritage. He oversaw record-breaking years in sponsored funding and fundraising, including the completion of Campaign Iowa State. Greg had the wisdom to appoint Wendy Wintersteen, Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences in 2006. His belief in her potential then helped lead us to where we are today with her as ISU's 16th president, Dr. Geoffroy.
Thank you, President Richards, and good morning, everyone. For me, this is a real treat to be back at Iowa State, a place that is so very special for me, where I have so many wonderful memories and so many good friends. I've enjoyed seeing the many changes that have occurred since I left, like the growth in the research park, the campus town redevelopment, the changes in and around Jack Trice Stadium, the several new buildings, and of course, especially that big new dormitory next to Buchanan Hall. But it's also good to see the many, many things that so characterize Iowa State that have not changed. Central Campus, the Campanile, Lake Laverne, and especially the university's exceptionally strong focus on students and on providing them a top quality education. And the evidence of that is the tremendous growth in enrollment that's occurred since I left, growth that's a direct reflection of Iowa State's student-centered reputation, a reputation that is so well deserved. And of course, I am especially delighted to be here to participate in this ceremony and introduce the 16th president of Iowa State University, Dr. Wendy Wintersteen. I first met Dr. Wintersteen 17 years ago during my early visits to campus, and then I came to know her well over the ensuing years, and the more that I interacted with her, the more it became very clear to me that she had a number of truly special leadership talents. And I was deeply pleased to appoint Dr. Wintersteen to her first senior leadership position, the endowed dean of Iowa State's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. And then, of course, I was even more delighted, but not at all surprised, when she was selected to be Iowa State's 16th president. Now, when I was asked to give this introduction, I knew it would be a challenge, because she really needs no introduction, since she's been part of the university for almost the last 40 years. And she's also exceptionally well known across the state of Iowa. Dr. Wintersteen's roots are deep here in the Midwest. She grew up in Kansas, received her bachelor's degree from Kansas State University in crop protection, and then immediately joined Iowa State University's Extension Service, working with farmers in eastern Iowa on integrated pest management. And she then simultaneously pursued her PhD degree in entomology at Iowa State, and was then appointed to the faculty of that department. In the year 2000, she was named director of the College of Agriculture's extension programs, and 2 years later, she was appointed senior associate dean. Then in 2006, I had the great pleasure of appointing her dean of the college, a position she held for 11 years. From her background, it should be very clear that Dr. Wintersteen is deeply wedded to the university's land grant mission, to serving the state of Iowa and its citizens in whatever way that service can be best provided. Through her previous appointments, she's traveled to all parts of Iowa, shared countless meetings and dinners with Iowa's citizens, met with Iowa's leaders, and listened to and heard the concerns of Iowans, their interests, and their expectations for their land-grant university. Now, all of that is information that's probably fairly well known about Dr. Wintersteen, but I wanted to try to add some color to her personality and her many talents. So I called around to my many friends on campus to see if I could find some characteristics of Dr. Wintersteen that might not be so well known, maybe some good stories. But alas, I learned very little. President Wintersteen is really a straight arrow. No one could recall any quirks or really funny stories or strange hobbies. There were the frequent comments about how hard she worked, that when folks traveled with her, she always seems to be busy working on several different electronic gadgets. Although I do know from my firsthand travels with her when we went to Africa to see our programs there, that she took plenty of time to appreciate and enjoy the people and the areas that we visited. The other things that I heard just reinforced what I already knew about Dr. Wintersteen's leadership style and her talents. People spoke about her disarming smile that immediately puts people at ease, her way of talking to people that's just non-confrontational, how humble she is, and how she never brags about herself, but she will brag effusively and effectively about Iowa State. President Wintersteen is especially regarded as a great listener. She truly listens to the views and opinions of others and works to understand how other people think about issues before she reaches her own conclusions. She's not afraid to ask questions, not afraid to admit that she currently doesn't have the answer. And she's very gracious if she disagrees with your point of view. She will politely tell you that she does not agree with that disarming smile and will then be very firm in her decision. A very good friend of mine on campus, Professor Max Rothschild, told me that she has a way of telling you no and somehow making you feel really good about the decision when you leave her office. And knowing Max, he had probably several occasions to hear that. Although Wendy is very thoughtful and doesn't jump to conclusions, she's also very decisive. When she makes a decision, she's firm in it. And she can take the heat if it's a decision that not everyone agrees with, something that I saw firsthand with several very challenging decisions that she had to make as dean. Friends on campus also noted how frugal President Wintersteen is, a characteristic that should serve her and Iowa State very well, particularly in these difficult budget times. I was told that she is so frugal that she even named her two cats Penny and Nickel. Quarter and dime were just too rich. People just like President Wintersteen. She's regarded as a great person to work with, a comment that I heard from people at all levels. And she truly loves Iowa State and everything about the university, including all things athletics. I recall seeing her many times with her husband Robert at Cyclone events, all dressed in cardinal and gold and cheering with enthusiasm. This past January, not long after Dr. Wintersteen took over as president, I saw her in action at a big alumni gathering in Florida, organized by Iowa State's fundraising arm, where she gave a State of the University address to about 200 especially invited alumni. And it was fabulous. In one of her first big speeches as president, she came across as confident, non-pretentious, relaxed, sincere, and she just made everyone there feel really good about the university and its future. Iowa State is so very fortunate to have President Wintersteen in charge at this moment in its history. For these are challenging times for universities and for university leaders, as they have to deal with the many issues that permeate our nation, the divisiveness, the incivility, and the partisanship that inevitably spills over onto university campuses, creating all sorts of issues that university leaders must face, important issues related to diversity, freedom of speech, immigration, the balance of political and social views, and so many others. There's also the growing questioning from some about the value of a college degree and whether alternative forms of education and workforce training should be given more emphasis. There are most certainly the concerns about student debt and the cost of a traditional college degree, along with the ongoing budget pressures, funding cuts, and calls for ever more efficiencies and cost savings. And there's the growing competition from online education providers where the quality of education is steadily increasing. All of this is very daunting and reinforces the need for universities and university leaders to focus on rebuilding the public trust, to clearly demonstrate the value of their educational offerings, and to demonstrate that universities like Iowa State truly care about the views and concerns of their constituents and that they're good stewards of the responsibilities and funds entrusted to them, things that I know that President Wintersteen will do extremely well. President Wintersteen is exactly the right person to be at the helm of Iowa State at this time in its history, and I congratulate her on her appointment as the 16th president of Iowa State University, and I congratulate the Board of Regents and all involved for selecting such a terrific president to lead this great institution, one that I care deeply about. Congratulations, Wendy.
now we've come to the part, the great picture part. We have now come to the official installation of Dr. Wintersteen. Would you join me at the lectern? Dr. Wintersteen, you have been selected by the Board of Regents of the state of Iowa to become the 16th person in a succession of outstanding leaders to serve as the president of Iowa State University of Science and Technology. Wendy Wintersteen, by virtue of the authority vested in me as president of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, it is with great pride and pleasure that I install you as the 16th president of Iowa State University of Science and Technology, with the assistance of Olivia Madison, Chair of the Installation Planning Committee and Dean Emerita of Library Services, and President Emeritus Gregory Geoffroy. I hereby vest in you the powers and obligations attendant to your office, which is symbolized by the university's presidential chain of office, which we now place around your neck. I now present to you the 16th President of Iowa State University, Dr. Wendy Wintersteen. It is my honor to invite Dr. Wintersteen to give her presidential address entitled, "To Serve, to Lead, to Excel."
As you know, I have a set of prepared comments, but I just have to begin by saying thank you to all of my friends and colleagues for those extraordinary comments. I hope you know it's quite embarrassing to sit on stage and listen to those wonderful comments, and that was the nicest way I've ever been called frugal to date. But it is one of my characteristics. So thank you all. Thank you for that fabulous welcome. And now to my prepared comments. I am very honored and humbled to stand before you today as the 16th president of Iowa State University, as a proud graduate of this extraordinary institution, an institution with one of the nation's most beautiful campuses. My deep appreciation to Governor Kim Reynolds for joining us, along with Congressman Steve King and Mayor John Hala, and the many other dignitaries that are here today. I also wish to thank President of the Board of Regents, Mike Richards, and all of the regents who give their time, volunteer their time and energy to carry out the very important duties as regents. My sincere thanks to our former presidents, Greg Geoffroy and interim President Ben Allen and their spouses for attending the celebration today, as well as the University of Iowa President Bruce Harold and University of Northern Iowa President Mark Nook, and all the representatives of institutions of higher education here in Iowa. My husband Robert and I are especially thankful for Kathy Geoffroy's presence here today and her very kind assistance in getting us established at the Knoll. It's so wonderful to see so many family members, friends, and colleagues in the audience, along with our students, our faculty and staff. I deeply appreciate your support, your prayers, and your good wishes. Seeing all of you reminds me of how blessed I am to be raised in the Midwest by supportive parents who knew the profound impact of education and hard work and encouraged me to follow my dreams. A year ago, when I was applying for this position, I introduced myself to the search committee in my application letter by mentioning the university-wide campaign led by the ISU Foundation, Forever True for Iowa State. I wrote, as dean, proud alumnus, and donor, the idea of Forever True touches me very deeply, since it clearly expresses my 38-year relationship with this university and underlies my reason for applying. If selected as president, I wrote, the Cyclone faithful will immediately know that this is someone who is not passing through, but is like them, forever true. As president, I promise to serve this great university so that it may reach its highest potential and academic excellence. With the assistance of my great administrative team, the deans, our excellent faculty and staff, our caring and supportive alumni and donors, I pledge to lead this university forward to become the best land-grant university in the nation. Working together, we will continue to excel. We will excel in our world-class science and research. We will excel in the classrooms and hands-on teaching labs. We will excel in the arts and humanities, and we will excel in our land-grant mission to support the people and economic vitality of this great state. Thank you. My ISU adventure began on a cold, snowy day in November of 1978. After an interview in Ames, ISU Extension offered me a position as an integrated pest management field specialist in Southeast Iowa. I did not realize how fortunate I was to be a part of ISU Extension. There, I found a welcoming and inclusive environment where people were eager to share their scientific research, organizational knowledge, and personal insights to help me succeed. Discovering the interconnected nature of research, teaching, and extension was truly exciting. A few years later, I decided to pursue my PhD in entomology at Iowa State. Dr. Dave Foster acted as my major professor. Dave was my mentor by example. In his laconic way, he mentored me by his actions. In fact, as I remember back, he barely spoke to me for the first 3 months that we worked together. Yet I heard the verbal and nonverbal messages. From his actions, I learned a new way of being. Dave modeled professionalism, the scientific approach, and how to be engaged in one's discipline. Specifically, he made it clear that every day comes with choices, and that choices lead to pathways with consequences. He taught me to recognize that I was on a path, and that I was creating the direction of that path, knowingly or unknowingly. So I might as well think about where I was going and act in a way to get there. Little did I realize that consistently trying to do my best would create a pathway to the presidency. After progressing through the ranks as a staff person, as a faculty member, senior associate dean, and then 11 years as dean of the Great College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, I sensed that ISU might be looking for something different in a new president, someone who understood the history, the culture at Iowa State, supported its land-grant mission, and cared deeply about its faculty, staff, and 35,000 students, and would dedicate their life to advancing this great institution and its academic excellence. I decided to lean in and take that chance to be part of this historic opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have been selected to serve. However, I do need to say that during the past 10 months, there's one question that I frequently ponder when I'm faced by various challenges, and that is, why didn't Ben Allen take care of that? Seriously, we all owe Ben and his lovely wife Pat a tremendous gratitude for coming and serving Iowa State University. Another round of applause for Ben and Pat. Next year on my birthday, ISU will celebrate 150 years since the very first presidential inaugural celebration on March 17, 1869. In that first inaugural ceremony, the president of the Board of Trustees, B.F. Gu, stated, "It is one of the chief aims of this college to break down the barriers which belong to the darker ages of the past and open these doors to any of God's people, whether high or low in social circles, rich or poor, white or black, man or woman." The Board of Trustees sought to dedicate this institution to the education of the working people of Iowa. In his installation address, our first president, Adonijah Welch, made note, "The greatest obstacle to all reform is prejudice." He fully supported the ideals of the Iowa State Agricultural College to educate both the sons and the daughters of this great state, regardless of race, so that everyone could achieve their full personal and academic potential and use that knowledge to better their lives, their communities, and the state of Iowa. In his address, President Welch mentioned that at that time, only four other colleges allowed admission to women as equal partners. The founders of Iowa State Agricultural College were practical idealists. In a few short years after the Civil War, they set out to reform higher education, to open it up to all classes, races, and genders, and to focus on the practical arts and sciences necessary for future growth and discovering the mysteries of nature. They knew that prejudice was based on ignorance. They stated that everyone in this state had a natural right to higher education if they were willing to work for it. Being welcoming and inclusive is built into the DNA of this university from its very founding moments. As president, I will work to serve this ideal and strive to make ISU set the standard among land-grant universities as a leader in creating a welcoming and inclusive environment where anyone who is willing to work hard can achieve their full potential. As a proud alumnus and this university's first female president, I represent the active expression of that ideal of inclusiveness. I intend to nurture this ideal and energize it for all of those who come after me. It is one of my top priorities. By virtue of this ideal, Iowa State admitted George Washington Carver in 1891, the son of slaves, who went on to graduate with a bachelor's and master's degree from Iowa State and then served as our first Black faculty member. He used that knowledge and foundation in science with practice to revolutionize agriculture and food technology, especially in the South. Years later, George Washington Carver noted, "Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Not only one's personal freedom, but freedom from want, freedom from food insecurity, and most importantly, freedom from ignorance. At that time, who knew what he would become? Who could foresee the inventions that he would create, or the transformative science and the mysteries of nature that he would share with the world? As I walk across campus each day greeting students, a part of me wonders, is that young man or that young woman the next George Washington Carver? What inventions and discoveries will these students make to help the world? One reason that this is an exciting time to serve as the president of Iowa State is the tremendous engagement and support of the university alumni and friends. It's rewarding to hear from so many alumni who feel their education here literally transformed the direction of their lives, and they give back to ensure the same opportunity for future generations. Last year, nearly 36,000 alumni and friends contributed to Iowa State University. Can you imagine? 36,000. The impact of their giving is seen in every corner of this beautiful campus, sustaining the university's land-grant mission of education, research, extension, and service. During the past year, we've had some extraordinary donor investments, and each of these is linked to a feeling of gratitude for their student experience and ongoing engagement with the people and programs of Iowa State University. Last year, we named the College of Business the Debbie and Jerry Ivy College of Business in recognition of a gift of $50 million from the Ivies that is already supporting scholarships, faculty, and programs in the college. They know the transformational power of education. Regrettably, Debbie and Jerry could not be with us today, but will you join me in thanking them for their generosity, practical idealism, and caring philanthropy? Last year, the College of Liberal Arts and Science was also delighted to receive from an anonymous couple a large gift of stock in Curriculum Associates, an educational technology firm. The sale of the stock resulted in more than $150 million for the college to increase student scholarships, support high-impact learning experiences, and recognizing outstanding faculty. Another round of applause for those donors. Iowa State's legacy of inclusiveness and service continues as a living tradition in the third gift that I would like to share with you. This summer I visited Uganda for the opening of the Iowa State University Impirigiti training facility by our Center for Sustainable Rural Livelihoods. This wonderful program is transforming the Kamuli district in Uganda, home of some of the poorest poor, and also transforming the lives of our students and faculty who spend time there. We are so thankful for Karen and Jerry Kolchowski and their entire family for supporting our Center for Sustainable Rural Livelihoods, our global resource systems, and providing the majority of the funds for this facility, and having the vision to ensure that Iowa State University becomes a truly global institution. A round of applause for Jerry and Karen Kolchowski. I am particularly excited about the Student Innovation Center, a new building going up just west of the Marston Water Tower, where half the funds came from the state of Iowa and the rest from generous donors, including a remarkable $20 million gift from an anonymous couple. There, students will have a supportive and special place to collaborate on ideas and innovations to advance science, solve real-world problems, spark new businesses, and learn how innovators and entrepreneurs move the economy of this state and country forward. As president, I have made it a priority that our students, faculty, and staff know that Iowa State University is a campus that encourages innovation and supports entrepreneurs. In fact, I want a spirit of entrepreneurism to be a significant part of the Iowa State brand, one of the special things that sets us apart. As our alumnus and publishing entrepreneur, Roy Ryman, told his publishing team about his magazines, first we make them different, then we make them better. Iowa State must be different, it must stand out from the pack, then it must be better than the rest. As president, I intend to establish a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem where innovating is built into the curriculum and where innovations and entrepreneurial ideas come from our students, faculty, and staff, and that they receive support to move those ideas forward. Building on the success of the Ivy College of Businesses major and minor in entrepreneurship, we will create and support undergraduate entrepreneurial programs in our other colleges to better prepare our students for the new economy of rapid change. Over the course of its history, Iowa State has distinguished itself as the birthplace of many inventions and innovations. As many of you know, Iowa State University built the very first electronic digital computer. John Vincent Adanasoff, a former Iowa State professor of physics and mathematics, and Clifford Berry, a former physics graduate student and electrical engineering undergraduate, built the computer at Iowa State University from 1937 to 1942. Iowa State considered, but did not file a patent on this revolutionary technology. Imagine the possibilities. Iowa State and its community of scholars has been and continues to be the home of the world's greatest innovations, but we must both support and recognize innovation in order for our work to make a powerful impact and change this world for the better. I am pleased to report that last year our faculty had a banner year in terms of commercializing their research and innovation. Worldwide, Iowa State ranks in the top 100 universities granted U.S. patents in 2017, and last year, Iowa State researchers earned 32 U.S. patents. Also, Iowa State has 366 active commercial agreements related to ISU technologies and to germplasm. As president, I will encourage the next step, where our faculty, staff, and students are supported in helping their innovative research lead to an increasing number of patents licensed by industry. And for those with entrepreneurial ambitions, I want to assist them in actively creating new businesses here in Iowa. For decades, Iowa State has been an engine of economic development for the state and a powerful resource for companies in solving technical problems. We need to continue that important work while also creating a generation of ISU research-backed startups. I want to see the ISU Research Park flourish with activity that expresses the brilliance of our faculty, staff, and students, and it acts as a magnet for businesses worldwide. As ISU reaches for greater heights, I will reward and recognize the excellence of our teachers and the success they achieve in the classroom, across the arts and humanities, science and engineering, and in every corner in this university. In the words of Albert Camus, real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. And I see this every day in the actions of our faculty and staff towards our students. They give their all to educate and inspire these students. With the rapid enrollment growth in the past 10 years, we must provide the tools and resources that enable our faculty and advisors to touch and inspire all of our students. Aligned with that goal, we must continue to make the student-centered experience a priority for every college. We must increase the number of students who can take advantage of high-impact learning experiences. Whether it's an aeronautical engineering field trip to Boeing in Seattle, a fashion merchandising event in Paris, or a marine biology trip to the Virgin Islands. Similarly, we must support our students who wish to study abroad in Brazil, in China, India, Africa, in Rome, and around the world. ISU is known for its very high student retention rate, but we must develop and implement new approaches to improve our graduation rates. In the coming years, I hope to work with the ISU Foundation to raise funds to offer completion grants to those students who need a final bit of financial support to finish their degree. Imagine being 12 credits away from graduating, but having no funds to finish that semester. These completion grants provide the final bit of financial help to get our seniors across the finish line so they can graduate. And finally, I will make it a priority to recruit, nurture, and retain excellent faculty. Iowa State has a long and proud tradition of discovering talented faculty and staff, but we must continue these efforts by seeking funds to support their needs for world-class facilities, graduate students, and research. We must seek funds to grow new research programs in engineering, in agriculture and life sciences, in veterinary medicine, in liberal arts and sciences, in human sciences, in business, and in design, and to create nationally ranked departments in each college. It's an exciting time to be the president of Iowa State University, but it's also a challenging time. Even though our resources seem limited and ISU offers one of the lowest tuition rates in the nation, my administrative team and I continue to work to offer an incredible educational opportunity by strategically pruning away less fruitful efforts and investing in more fruitful ones, and by seeking to improve our own administrative efficiency. In a word, we will serve, we will lead, we will ultimately excel by constantly innovating. As lead administrator, I will work with the university administrative team and the ISU Foundation to seek out and engage new funding streams. We must identify innovative government partnerships, public-private partnerships, and global and venture capital partnerships to grow this great university and achieve our fullest potential. My passion for Iowa State continues after these 39 years because I know how it transformed me. I know Iowa State has transformed many of you here today. Your university experience allowed you to accomplish things in your life that you could never imagine. I believe in the future of Iowa State University, in the potential of our students, the excellence of our researchers, the transformative power of our educators, and the strategic commitment and dedication of our staff. Together, we can build upon our great historic land-grant foundation and make Iowa, our nation, and this world a better place for future generations. Now let me finish my remarks by returning to the final comments spoken by President Welch as he looked forward to building this great university almost 150 years ago. God, give us mutual confidence, mutual esteem, and mutual helpfulness. Thus shall we be able to gather and concentrate all the elements of strength we possess. And thus, with the great Father's blessing, will the rolling years bring their full harvest of fruits. Thank you for supporting Iowa State University and allowing me to serve. Thank you.
The Iowa State Singers, under the direction of Dr. James Rohde, Iowa State University's Director of Choral Activities, will now perform two selections: If Music Be the Food of Love by David Dicklau, and The Bells of Iowa State by James Wilson and arranged by Robert Mollison.
Sing on,
The installation of Iowa State University's 16th president is nearly concluded. I'd like to thank everyone who helped plan out and carry out today's installation, especially President Emeritus Gregory Geoffroy. Thank you for coming. The greeters, the musicians, the color guard, the platform officials, the faculty marshals, the representatives of the university community, the representatives of higher education who were part of the processional, and the planning committee. I also want to thank the many others who are in attendance today. For Iowa State University is a public university whose mission is to serve the people of Iowa, and it is very important that you are represented. In conclusion, we mark a new beginning in the continuing story of one of the nation's outstanding institutions of higher learning. Thank you for being part of this historic occasion and the historic day for Iowa State. Now, just a couple little more housekeeping here. I ask the audience to remain seated until all of the official parties on the platform and the academic procession have recessed. Immediately following the installation, there will be a reception in honor of President Wintersteen and Mr. Wagner in the Celebrity Cafe in the lower level of Stevens Auditorium. You are invited to the installation reception, which concludes at 1:30 p.m. You may also bring your personal congratulations to President Wintersteen in a receiving line, and I want to mention that a photographer will be present to take informal and formal images. If you want to be in the receiving line, please use the ramp entering the cafe on the west side, Now, the Chief Faculty Marshal, Dr. Robert Wallace, and Dr. Lee Burris will lead the recessional, beginning with the platform party. At this time, I pronounce the installation of President Wendy Wintersteen at a close.